Welcome to Football Today team profile and projection. And today we are looking at the Tennessee Titans, who came in our Football Today power rankings at 28th, despite the fact that I had them 22nd for the record. They went 6-11 last year, and it was obviously a really down year for the Titans, and they made a lot of changes. Mike Vrabel's out. Brian Callahan was in. Offensively, they were 27th in scoring. Defensively, they were 16th and, held up halfway decent. But it was just a team that had a lot of issues and struggled to get anything really going. So Brian Callahan comes over from the Bengals. He's been their offensive coordinator since 2019. They bring in Nick Foles as the offensive coordinator, who's the Jags passing game coordinator and the UNLV OC in 2022. And they got, to me, what was the most desirable defensive coordinator candidate, or at least new one, outside like a Vic Fangio, and Denard Wilson, who was the Ravens DB coach last year and the Eagles DB coach the 2 years before that. I'm excited for this Tennessee Titans. If you ask me if there's any team that's like ranked in the 20s to 30s that can surprise people and make the playoffs, to me, it's the Tennessee Titans. Because one, I think they've put enough pieces around Will Levis to figure out if he's worth investing in or pivoting in 2025. I like the coaching staff, and I think they've upgraded, their talent, and they weren't a team that was, barren for talent either. I think that this team, I think Will Levis is going to look good this year. I think we might be having conversations like, is it him or the scheme? But I think Will Levis is going to look pretty good this year, and I'm excited about these Tennessee Titans.
Bobby, I'm with you, man, where before we did prep for this and before we really started recording this, I was like, I don't know, man. Will Levis, the Titans kind of boring offensively, but they obviously got way more exciting this offseason. But if I were to tell you that the Titans were 16th in offensive EPA per play last year, they were 20th in EPA per dropback, 13th in EPA per rush attempt, and then even the weeks while Will Levis was starting, week 7 to 17, they were 20th in EPA per play, 19th in EPA per dropback, and 17th per rush. You would be shocked, right? If I told you that they were kind of middle of the pack offensively? You're muted.
Yeah, it was a struggle last year for them, right? Like it felt like that, right? There were some stinkers of games. There was turnovers by Will Levis. And I want to talk a lot about Will Levis in this episode, because it's, the second year QBs I like talking about a lot. Like Levis came out, had that 4 touchdown, zero interception game to kick it off. And like, oh boy. And then after that, in 8 games, he had 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and 7 fumbles, right? So that was, not good. He had some good moments, but there was a good amount of stinkers in there too. But he was aggressive, right? Had the highest average depth of target in the NFL. The difference between him and third highest was the difference between 3rd and 26th. Like he was slinging
I have more numbers on that.
The 5th most play action attempts, but a negative differential. But I want to talk, I have notes on like the offense's negatives that held Will Levis back, the good of Levis, the bad of Levis, and just the passing game as a whole with their receivers that they added.
I have more numbers on just how aggressive Will Levis was. And it wasn't just like an offense. Ryan Tannehill wasn't doing that when he was in there. I mean, the numbers are very clear and distinctively different for Will Levis and Ryan Tannehill. Will Levis had the highest average up to target in the league with 10.7 among QBs with 200 plays. The 2 Browns QBs were next with 9.4, a whole yard less than Levis. 16th in the NFL in deep attempts, 57 in 9 games. So he was 16th in the NFL in those deep attempts, and he only played 9 games. 42% adjusted completion rate on those, which was 14th. So not bad for a QB kind of thrusted into a bad offensive situation. And besides D-Hop and supposedly Burks, who's going up and really catching those balls, 22% of his total throws were from 20-plus yards, Bobby. So really, I want you to go into what kind of held the Titans back offensively last year. But even just knowing 22% of his total throws were from 20-plus yards and 32, Will Levis did have 32 plays of 20-plus yards last year through the air. And the Titans had a total of 54, which was around middle of the pack. I'm really interested to see what type of offense Brian Callahan will run with the Titans, because he had Joe Burrow with a really quick time to release and a lower average depth of target because of how teams play and respect those receivers, and also probably a bad offensive line. And now in Tennessee, you got a guy that clearly wants to and will throw the ball deep. You add a receiver in Calvin Ridley, who is going to do that to Tyler Boyd, who's an underrated add too. We'll talk about what they look like this year, but tell me about how they struggled last year too.
Yeah, and like So you mentioned like the difference between like Joe Burrow and the Bengals and what the Titans could be like. We saw the Bengals live out of empty and try and get the ball out quick, but I don't think that will translate to the Titans for Callahan. What I do think will translate is they'll find out what Levis is most comfortable with and try to master it. And the offensive negatives last year, the offensive line, Andre Dillard was absolutely awful. They drafted J.C. Latham. They got a new center. But just the offensive design was awful to me. Like the offense was very much like deep, like 2 routes deep to check down, right? While trying to keep extra protection in. They didn't have any semblance of a quick game or RPOs, which again shows up in the average depth of target. They also had like kind of a fear. One, they wanted to feed Derrick Henry and had a fear of their pass protection. So it was a lot of run, pass, and then, trying to mix a bunch of screens in, which were hit or miss. They had some good screens, but they also had like, Levis threw an interception on one screen that I saw. And the play action game, they used it a lot, but it was just bad design, right? They got heavy in the under center play action, which I love under center getting heavy play action, but their play design out of it was awful. So, but now with the Levis good and the Levis bad, with the good, there's just a fearlessness to his game, right? He will fit the ball in tight spots, throw past guys, and he throws a great ball, right? The accuracy has been like, let me ask you this. When you watch film, whose accuracy is more of a worry, Will Levis or Bryce Young? To me, it's Bryce Young by a mile. A mile that I worry way more about his accuracy. I think his accuracy has been pretty solid. And he's got a playmaker ability and willingness to like take a hit, which it could be a negative. I see him move guys with his shoulders, right? Like I see a guy who's confident out there. Now, here's the bad. He needs to be better pre-snap, right? There's just times where it's like, okay, this look you're getting, you should be getting the ball here and you should be getting it quick. Protect his body. Like the funness of seeing a guy willingness to take a hit or put his shoulder down is awesome, but he needs to protect his body. And there are just some like effort throws where he throws into double coverage and triple coverage.
And that's where I think he needs to work the quick game better, because if he's holding onto the ball, F it DeAndre Hopkins or F it somebody down there somewhere, and that's where he gets into a little bit of trouble.
And my line for this is that, can you say, oh, well, is he passing up open receivers? There was very few when I was watching his film of should have done that. There was just some shouldn't have dones, right? But on the shouldn't have dones, it's like, hey, throw it away, try and make a play with your legs or something. There wasn't like, oh my gosh, you missed this. So again, that speaks to the bad Tennessee play design. And so I think Brian Callahan is going to do a good job. Like I said, playing to his strengths, right? Do you think Zach Taylor and Brian Callahan came over from the Rams? Zach Taylor came over from the Rams. Was like, yeah, just go empty. No, that's not what they did with the Rams, but they adjusted to their quarterback in Joe Burrow. So I think they'll adjust to Will Levis. You add offensive line help. You draft J.C. Latham in the first round. I bring Brian Callahan's father, Bill Callahan, who's like one of the offensive line GOAT coaches. Defensively, I think to be, and then they added talent, right? They added talent to the receiver room, right? No semblance of a quick game. Well, guess what? You just brought in Tyler Boyd, who's still just 29 years old. He's missed 3 games in the last 5 years. He can put up between 600 to 800 yards every year, depending on like the health of the pass game. I didn't love the Calvin Ridley signing for them, but short term, like they are investing in Will Levis, and that's a proven 1,000-yard, 8-touchdown type of guy. So I think they're set up to be. If they're not good offensively, it's either the offensive line investments 100% failed, or Will Levis isn't good.
Yeah, I agree with that. Where, dude, I want to continue talking more about Will Levis and what he did last year. Where some of the most fun Will Levis ball last year is when he looked like he was just playing backyard, and he was like the best backyard player in the family, and just heaving it up deep. Where he had fun scrambles. He had some pretty fun arm angle throws last year where he's not even planted, bad pressures in front of him, or even just heaving it downfield to DeAndre Hopkins. If you want to be encouraged by Will Levis, go watch him against Houston last year, where he features all those kinds of fun throws, the scrambles, the improvisation, the different arm angles. If he can get somewhat more confidence throwing the intermediate ball, the same way that he has the confidence when he throws it deep, there could be really some fun stuff happening in Tennessee where he does have that confidence. I really think throwing it deep, but there are some balls that I saw him throwing to the sideline in between that 10 to 19 yard range.
Great.
And I'm like, dude, let's not put so much air into this. Like have some confidence that you can get that football there. the same confidence that you have by getting the football there when you're throwing it 20-plus yards down the field. Yeah. And I think Callahan is going to reinforce that, knowing how well he did, and hopefully in that department with Burrow.
A willingness to take shots, while pressure all around him. And again, they need a semblance of quick game, but it wasn't really in the playbook for them, right? We talked about Bryce Young with the Panthers, all it was quick game, right? There was nothing. Everything they did was 2 or 3 man routes down the field with a block and release type of check down stuff. And that's just not going to be consistently successful. You're just not going to do that unless you have, a dominant type of run game, even though they had a great back in Derrick Henry. But let's talk about the wide receiver trio to go with Will Levis, right? You have Hopkins, who put up 75 catches, 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns at 31 years old. You add Calvin Ridley, who's a 1,000-yard receiver, and then Tyler Boyd. That's a nice trio. That's a nice trio. And they even have a guy like Kyle Phillips who can be their backup slot. I think the Treylon Burks thing is over there, but they have pieces, and they're multiple, right? Where Hopkins is, they used him as just go down the field type stuff, but he can do more to his route tree. Calvin Ridley can run all the routes. You're not someone you want to ask to be a number 1 wide receiver, ideally. And then Boyd, right? Boyd's been one of my favorite players and one of the more underrated players to the Cincinnati Bengals' success the last few years is Tyler Boyd. He's a chain mover. He's solid. He's going to get you between 600, 800 yards. And that will add, again, that semblance of a quick game that they just someone that they desperately need.
Yeah, I think Chig, the tight end, is going to be part of that too.
It'll be interesting with him because you see flashes of greatness. Yeah. And it's what role do you use him in? And again, but he's now your 4th receiving option, ideally.
Right. He was second on the team in receptions last year. Yeah. Then he had 2 running backs. He had Tajay Spears and Derrick Henry, 3rd and 4th in receptions last year. Nick Westbrook was the second receiver behind DeAndre Hopkins. So there's options. And that's a really good thing for this Tennessee Titans offense for sure.
Let's just talk about up front, right? Because the offensive line was awful last year, right? Will Levis and Ryan Tannehill were 2nd and 3rd for O-line driven, pressure rate. 43% coming from the left tackle, Andre Dillard. For both guys, number 1 and number 2 for left tackle pressure, which is the worst type of pressure you can get from one position. And only Justin Fields and Daniel Jones were pressured at a higher rate, and those guys had triple the QB driven pressure rate, right? So it wasn't those guys, it wasn't Will Levis creating pressure. It was simply just bad offensive line play. And
I actually think that's a misconception that's being rolled around right now, where Will Levis is getting and he can't hold on to the ball. He does. Titans offense and Callahan, we already talked about it, how they're going to scheme up some quick stuff a little bit better for him. But that I was shocked to see how the pressure rate that he owns, that's the QB responsible driven, it's 6.8%. It's low.
Yeah, it is low. And again, he was pressure, he had outside of the Giants had the highest pressure rate from their offensive line.
Yeah,
in total. And you add Bill Callahan as the offensive line coach. Now, I still worry about that right side. And I'm not convinced that J.C. Latham's going to hit the ground running, at least as a pass blocker, but there could be struggles there. But they just had a bad 5 across last year. Across the board, they were bad. Peter Skoronski was up and down, but he had a fine rookie year. I think he'll be in line for a nice year, too.
I'm excited for him this year.
Jump. So now you have you add Lloyd Cushenberry as the center, right? That's a huge upgrade. You have J.C. Latham and Peter Skoronski. You at least have a left tackle to center that you have invested in and feel confident. Right guard and right tackle is going to be an issue, but again, compared to last year where it was just bad, it was bad across, and that's just so hard to deal with as an offense, as a quarterback and an offensive play caller.
Yeah, I'm excited about Skoronski. I don't know how much you watched a little bit of what he did during his rookie year. I went back and I watched a little bit. He reportedly added strength this offseason, which is what he needed. I love how active and early his hands are, and at the attack, and I think that's really going to help him in year 2. I've seen him, saw him drive some guys. So
Callahan's going to do wonders with him. I'm
excited
confident
about what Skoronski can do in year 2 for sure.
But here's kind of the elephant in the room: how will life be with them without Derrick Henry? Right, he signed for 2 years, $16 million, $9 million guaranteed. And the Titans signed Tony Pollard for 3 years, $21 million. Like, basic, almost the same average annual value, and then more guaranteed money. Pollard is 27 and Derrick Henry is 30. But Derrick Henry was second in yards last year. Pollard was 12th. Henry had better yards per carry, and Pollard had 4.0 yards per carry behind a much better offensive line. Pollard did have a down year in his only year as that workhorse back. Now, Tyjae Spears is someone they're going to use, and he gives you that explosive element.
And I like him. Yeah, he's pretty good.
Like, he's a nice number 2 complement. Like, he had 830 scrimmage yards on a team with Derrick Henry last year. So I do think it'll be a little more like 60-40. But I do think they're gonna scheme that run up well, and it'll look good. But to me, for the 1 year, Pollard is a significant downgrade to Derrick Henry, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I also think that they're gonna just throw the ball more. Where the Titans had a pass rate over expected last year of -5.3%, and the Bengals were second in the league at +5.6%. Joe Burrow and Will Levis are not the same quarterback. And they don't have the same complement of weapons in Tennessee as they do in Cincinnati. I'm not saying those situations are the same, but they are going to throw the ball more. Where the Titans for years, under Vrabel, Belichick-minded guy, we're going to play run defense. We're going to stop the run, and we're going to run the ball. And I think the philosophy, at least offensively, may be a little different this year, because you go to your strength. If you don't feel like you have an offensive line that could, run block that well, at least try and work the quick game, get the ball out of the quarterback's hands quicker. And, we've talked about this for another team that we did on TPPs, where even if you want to throw it deep, it doesn't take long to tell DeAndre Hopkins to run a go, and you can get the ball out of your hands quick, and he can try and get open at the line. He can make a contested catch, whatever the case may be. So I think this Titans team is going to go from an identity of run first to where we may try and lean on the positives and the pluses and the upside of Will Levis.
I do think they're going to have like an emphasis on running the ball. Like, I don't think they're going to be Eric Bieniemy style of like, we only run when we get light boxes.
Right.
So I do think there's going to be like, and you don't bring in Bill Callahan to not run the ball at all. So, but it'll be interesting to see how much do they miss Derrick Henry, and how much are they using Tyjae Spears, with Tony Pollard. So we'll see there. Defensively, Justin.
Yep.
They hired Jannard Wilson as their defensive coordinator. He spent 2023 with the Ravens, the years before that with the Eagles. He was their the DB coach for both. Last year with the Ravens, they were first in yards per attempt, second in passes defended, third in interceptions. In 2022 with the Eagles, they were third in yards per attempt, fourth in passes defended, fourth in interceptions. I mean, the Eagles went from 4th to 26th in interceptions, 4th to 19th in pass defended, 3rd to 15th in yards per attempt. It's not, part of that is losing Jonathan Gannon and going to, Sean Desai and Matt Patricia. But both pass defenses have been extremely well structured in their discipline, using guys all over the place like chess pieces and baiting quarterbacks into mistakes. And he's learned under 2 different systems, under 2 good defensive coaches. It's this defense is not a defense you look at and like, oh, it's going to be dominant. But what I do think is they'll have them playing disciplined. And I'm really interested to see what they get out of the safeties, right? Because safeties are going to be a pivotal, role in this defense. And the guys that they have are versatile, but it's just how much of an advantage can those guys be? But it really starts up front, right? You have Jeff Simmons, who doesn't get mentioned with the Chris Jones, Quinnen Williams, and Dex guys, but he's like right there in that next tier of defensive tackles. Like, he's a guy who could just wreck an entire game. You've got a solid edge duo. And then what do we get from T'Vondre Sweat? But it does. Their strength is their front.
Yeah, and even I know we're not necessarily at additions yet, but their biggest addition this offseason, I think, is L'Jarius Sneed. And I'll just get to it, Bobby. He's my X factor for this team, because the talent on this defense isn't great, right? Jeffrey Simmons and Harold Landry kind of headline the guys up front. I'm actually really excited for Harold Landry this year. It's the second year that he's coming off his ACL.
Yeah, I have that note too.
So, you always know that, hey, the first year that you're coming off the ACL, you're rehabbing your body. You're not focusing on football. You're not really necessarily getting stronger because you're rehabbing the knee.
He got stronger as the season went along last year too. So I think he's going to kind of return to form as well this season.
I think Jeffrey Simmons also missed he missed 5 games last year too. So he was a guy that wasn't even healthy. 12 games, 5.5 sacks, and still got double-digit tackle for loss and 11 QB hits. So it's pretty damn good for an interior guy. So I'm going to say L'Jarius Sneed is my X factor, and he's obviously the biggest offseason addition that they had. You could say Calvin Ridley, but I think from L'Jarius Sneed was an All-Pro player last year.
Yeah,
and
Sneed's a better player.
His job in Kansas City. Dalton and I, we would document this on our All JM team, where his job last year was just facing these wide receiver ones. And the run of wide receiver ones that L'Jarius Sneed faced in the AFC, I'm pretty sure they also played the NFC last year, and he saw Mike Evans. The run that he faced and he shut them down was awesome. Awesome. But the note on L'Jarius Sneed is he's been good in his career, but last year was the first year that he was elite. If L'Jarius Sneed can continue to play elite shutdown corner football for Denard Wilson will be able to give help, shade to whoever else needs help in that secondary, because you have a guy that's locking it down. You have a guy that's following wide receiver ones. That's what he did under Steve Spags in Kansas City. That will help the entire defense, and a defense that still needs upgrades talent-wise.
Yeah, I have extremely similar notes, right? In my coverage section, L'Jarius Sneed was a top 5 cornerback in the NFL last year. Spags asked a lot of him, and he delivered. He is the key to this Denard Wilson defense. Like you said, if they can trust him to be this level of player he was last year, or even close to that, well, then you're, like you said, eliminating wide receiver ones, and it allows Denard Wilson to do all types of different things with his safeties, rotate guys and do more up front, or, double teams with, 2 good wide receivers. He is the key, right? Because, corner, Chidobe Awuzie, he's been a solid cornerback in the NFL, but he gives up, big plays here or there. He's someone you would like to give a little bit of help to. Roger McCreary is a fucking dog in the run game, better as he's a good man to cover corner, but needs to get a little better in the zone area. But if Sneed is shutting down that top guy, you have that front that's going to get after the quarterback and stop the run, right? I think that's key for them too. Their front knows how to stop the run. That's going to be the key for them. The one move I didn't like that they did this offseason, Justin.
Can I predict it?
Yes.
Is it an interior linebacker?
Yeah.
Is it Kenneth Murray?
Well, it's not even just signing Kenneth Murray, but it's losing Al-Shazir for Azeez Al-Shaair for Kenneth Murray. I think Azeez Al-Shaair is a better player than Kenneth Murray.
Yeah.
Now we've seen Denard Wilson do good job with his linebackers, but I think Azeez Al-Shaair is a better player. Jack Gibbons, he's fine. I like him, right? He was a UDFA in 2022, but Shazier was that top dog for them last year.
Who else did they lose? You want to go over some other additions and losses they had?
First, the other thing I want to say is Amani Hooker and Elijah Molden. Both those guys played evenly between box, deep, and nickel. Both versatile, but neither is great. But I'm excited to see what Denard Wilson gets out of those guys. So additions: Mason Rudolph, Tony Pollard, Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd, Sadiq Charles, Lloyd Cushenberry, Sebastian Joseph Day, Marlon Davidson, Kenneth Murray, L'Jarius Sneed, Chidobe Awuzie. They lost Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, Andre Dillard, Aaron Brewer, Danico Autry, Azeez Al-Shaair, Sean Murphy-Bunting, Christian Fulton, and Kayvon Wallace. So the 2 ones that I think that they're going to miss is Henry, or the 3, Shazier, and
Danico
Autry. Danico Autry is a really good run defending defensive tackle. He can do some stuff as a pass rusher. I think he's going to be missed quite a bit. And I think the Houston's really going to enjoy having him with the front that they have. But I think overall the biggest thing was, one, getting rid of Andre Dillard and figuring another plan at left tackle. I'm sure they would have loved Joe Alt, but they went JC Latham. Which to me speaks a little bit to, I think they're going to have an emphasis on running the ball. They're not going to be like the Titans last year, but I think when you take JC Latham over Olu Fashanu, that kind of signals that they're going to want to be a team that runs the ball, has some play action, and like you said, they're going to be way more pass team this year. But I still think there's a good philosophy and emphasis of running the ball.
Yeah, balance. I think they're going to be instead of being a team that runs it at a top 5 rate, right? I think you're going to have way more balance, and I think that's what any offense should strive for. And we haven't talked about it that much, but I love adding Lloyd Cushenberry. one of the best centers, most underrated
And
centers
Brewer
in the
was
league
awful
for
for them the year before too.
quite a long time. So I love adding Lloyd Cushenberry.
Yeah, like they left tackle and center was kind of their weakness of their offensive line. They went out of those guys. And then again, like I don't like the Calvin Ridley signing for his age and who he is, but he's going to be a positive impact on that team.
Yep.
The draft class, they drafted J.C. Latham in the first round, T'Vondre Sweat in the second. In the fourth round, they got Cedric Gray, the linebacker out of UNC, and then the DB Jarvis Brownlee out of Louisville. Jaquan Jackson is a sixth rounder, a guy I liked, fell in love with him at the Senior Bowl. I'm excited to see if he can ever get some role. James Williams, the safety / linebacker out of Miami, and then Jalen Harrell. Before we actually talk about it, I know James Williams is a seventh rounder, and I don't think he's ever going to make it in the NFL. But if there's any team that could probably help him do it, I think it could be this Titans team and could, use him. If they have one injury at linebacker, they're
because of the way that they utilize. Do you see him as more of a safety or a linebacker, or are you saying that because of the way Denard Wilson utilizes his safeties?
Whatever tag you put on him, he's going to be playing like a box only safety.
Okay.
Right, so he could have the tag of linebacker, but the way you use him will be like a box only type of safety.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think about T'Vondre Sweat? He was drafted higher than people thought, but that was because of the off-field shit. But I was someone who wanted T'Vondre Sweat for my team. Now, I didn't have him going in the second round, but I did view him as a high second-round talent. I know the off-field as long as he doesn't get in legal trouble, it's okay if he's not in the most perfect shape. And we don't need him studying film like he's a quarterback or a corner or a safety. I think as long as he's not just a total shithead, I think he's going to do his job and do it well for Tennessee.
Yeah, my main thing is be there. Be there and be here. Want to be fucking a dog in football. And I just don't. I don't know T'Vondre Sweat.
Can you get him focused when he's in the building?
Yes, that's my main question.
He's not going to be your community spotlight. But when he's in the building, is he working? Right? Yes, he's not going to be on a perfect diet. But we also, again, we can live with him being 380 pounds. That's what he played at Texas. Right? He might have even been over 400 pounds at the Senior Bowl. That's why I didn't weigh in. But I don't mind that. He's never going to be someone who he have good pass rush moves, but he's never going to be someone who finishes at the quarterback. So him being quote unquote overweight doesn't bother me because that's the way he plays.
Yeah, no, and if you drafted a guy that you're going to play for 50 to 60% of the snaps at most, and that's fine. Yeah, I think in today's NFL, we should move on from the talking point that you can't draft a run-stuffing interior defensive lineman high. Now, the first round and top 20, top 15, top 10 is a different story, but we need to move on from this notion that run-stuffing defensive linemen aren't valuable in a day of age where you want to drop guys into coverage. And so if you can have a guy up front that eats up space, takes up double teams, and wins at the point of attack, that's extremely valuable.
And he has pass rush value. He's just never going to be a guy who gets sacks and quarterback hits. But
he moves dudes.
Yeah, he moves dudes. He has good pass rush ability. It's just he's not going to be someone who finishes at the quarterback, right? Which again is going to lead for sacks for the other guys. So he's not someone that on passing downs is a negative. He's a plus on passing downs. Just he's not going to be the one to get those stats. Harold Landry or Jeffrey Simmons are going to be the guys that get those. So good luck. Who do you double? Jeffrey Simmons or T'Vondre Sweat? That's really hard to prepare for when you're playing the Tennessee Titans when they have Landry and Arden Key on the edge. That's
especially on running downs, which is why it's an interesting move to draft T'Vondre Sweat. Again, it's just things that we can't answer of. Are you going to be with it? Are you going to be here? Are you going to be really with us?
Yeah. I'm not asking him. I'm not pretending, if he just becomes a totally different person. We always try and do that with every player that's drafted. But just work when you're in the building. Show up, work when you're in the building. That's my ask of T'Vondre Sweat. I'm not going to, try and, make this guy the perfect citizen. My X factor for them is Tyler Boyd, right? If they can get a good quick game going, that's going to help Will Levis a lot, give him outlets when, there's stuff that's not developing, getting the ball to him underneath. Tyler Boyd's my X factor for the Tennessee Titans. If Tyler Boyd has a good season, the Tennessee Titans offense has a good season.
Fair. And I already said L'Jarius Sneed.
Over under 6.5 wins. I'm going over.
Okay. I had 5.5. I'm also going over. They have a really tough schedule, but I believe in the coaching that they have, and I believe in Will Levis.
I will not be surprised if this team's competing for a playoff spot in the last week of the season.
Really? I really
They can beat the Jags or Colts. Right? The Texans
I just don't think
is a tough ask.
I don't think the defensive talent's there. They have players, but as a whole and as a collective, now this is where.
But they're a defense that didn't have the bottom fall out from them. Like they were a middle of the pack defense last year, and they do have better talent.
They were 28th in defensive EP. Yeah, they have to be a better pass defense. They were good at stopping the run. They can continue to still be good stopping the run. You get L'Jarius Sneed, and you add Denard Wilson, who has done wonders with pass defenses everywhere that he's gone the last couple years. So, yeah, I'm going over. I'm with you. This is the first team that I'm going over on these TPPs.
Whoever is the best safety in the next class, I want the Titans to draft him. That's something I have for them. All right. That was the Tennessee Titans, and this is Football Today.